The wind howled outside as I sat in the dimly lit office, the glow of the computer screen casting eerie shadows on the walls. My fingers danced across the keyboard, compiling our latest case report. Mulder was out, grabbing a late-night coffee and snacks for us to power through the night. With each case we worked on, I felt our bond growing stronger, a connection that went beyond just partners. As I typed, a notification popped up on the screen. An email from an unfamiliar address. Curiosity piqued, I clicked it open, and the message contained a video file. I hesitated for a moment before deciding to play it. The video began, revealing a young Inuit girl, her eyes filled with fear and desperation. Agent Mulder, Agent Scully, my name is Nuka, she began, her voice trembling. I live in a remote Inuit village in the Arctic, and we desperately need your help. Members of our tribe have been disappearing one by one, children, elders, friends, and family. We believe the murderers are among us, hiding in plain sight. We need your expertise to find them and put an end to this nightmare. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. As she spoke, I couldn't help but notice the perpetual twilight outside her window, a constant reminder of the isolation and darkness that enveloped her world. Nuka continued, we've tried to contact the authorities, but they won't listen to us. We're running out of time, and I fear that if you don't help us, more innocent lives will be lost. The video ended with Nuka pleading for our assistance, her eyes brimming with tears. I felt a sudden sense of urgency. This young girl, reaching out to us from the edge of the world, desperately needed help. I knew we couldn't turn our backs on her. I needed to show this to Mulder as soon as he returned. And in the night of the as I waited, I couldn't help but think about Nuka's village. What must it be like to live in a place where the sun barely rose, where the darkness seemed to swallow everything? How would the absence of light affect the people there, their beliefs, and their fears? I shuddered at the thought. Of the Elden. When Mulder returned, I shared the video with him. He watched intently, his brow furrowing with concern as he listened to Nuka's plea. I could see the wheels turning in his head, his natural instinct to seek the truth and solve the unsolvable driving him forward. We have to help her, Scully, Mulder said, determination in his eyes. We can't let this continue. We need to find out what's happening in that village and put a stop to it. I nodded, my resolve matching his. This wasn't just about solving a case. It was about saving a community in crisis, about helping a girl who had put her faith in us, and about confronting the darkness that threatened to consume them all. As we prepared to leave for the Arctic, I couldn't shake the feeling that this case would test us like never before. The remote location, the constant darkness, and the unknown horrors that awaited us would push us to our limits. But we were a team, Mulder and I. And together, we would face the darkness head-on and bring light to the shadows that threatened Nuka and her people. With a deep breath, I grabbed my coat and followed Mulder out the door, ready to embark on this chilling journey into the heart of darkness. As I listened to Nuka's pleading voice in the video message, something deep within me resonated. A gut instinct told me that we needed to investigate this case, to bring justice to the people who had been so brutally taken from their families. But as I glanced at Mulder, I could see that he was already lost in thought, no doubt weighing the possibilities and conspiracies that might be at play. When we presented the case to Skinner, I wasn't surprised by his warning. It was clear that something bigger was going on. His eyes darted between us, his voice stern and unwavering as he explained that the Canadian government had recently shot down a UFO, and that the military had taken jurisdiction over everything happening in the area. His words hung heavy in the air, creating a palpable tension. "Stay away from the case," he ordered. But his tone held something else, fear, perhaps. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew that his warning was not to be taken lightly. As we left Skinner's office, Mulder's determination was written all over his face. I could tell that he wasn't willing to let this case go. "We can't just ignore this, Scully," he said, his voice a mix of frustration and resolve. "There are lives at stake, and it's our job to help." I hesitated, my thoughts a swirling mix of my own sense of duty and the very real possibility of defying a direct order from our superior. The weight of our decision pressed down on me, making it difficult to breathe. I closed my eyes, searching for clarity. When I opened them again, I found Mulder's gaze fixed on me, his eyes filled with quiet determination. I knew he needed me, just as I needed him. We were a team, and we had faced countless challenges together. "All right," I finally agreed, my voice a barely audible whisper. "Let's do this." Mulder's eyes lit up with renewed purpose, and I could see the wheels in his head already turning, formulating a plan to get us to Churchill, Manitoba. As we made our way back to our office, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in the pit of my stomach. I knew we were on the precipice of something monumental, but I couldn't have guessed just how far down the rabbit hole we would go. As we prepared to leave for Canada, my mind raced with the possible consequences of our actions. I imagined Skinner's disappointment when he inevitably found out what we had done. I thought of the military and the power they wielded, the secrets they guarded so fiercely. And despite my trepidation, I couldn't ignore the pull of the unknown, the lure of the truth that lay just beyond our reach. It was this unrelenting desire to uncover the truth that led us to defy Skinner's orders and board that charter flight to Churchill. We knew the risks, but we also knew that there was a greater cause at stake. And as we sat in the tiny airplane, the hum of the engine vibrating through the cabin, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of exhilaration. As we embarked on this dangerous journey, I found myself thinking back to the video message from Nuka. Her eyes, filled with desperation and hope, haunted me. I knew that we had made the right decision, but I couldn't shake the nagging thought that there was more to this case than met the eye. But we were committed now, and there was no turning back. The Inuit village, the shape-shifting creatures, the government conspiracies, they all lay ahead of us, shrouded in the darkness of the unknown. And as the biting wind whips around us as Mulder and I stand on the tarmac, our breath visible in the frigid air. I glance at him, a look of determination etched across his face, and I wonder if we've made the right choice. Going off the grid, away from the FBI's watchful eyes, is risky. But Mulder's passion has a way of persuading me, and this time is no different. Together, we wait for the charter flight that will take us to Churchill, Manitoba. A small, beat-up prop plane comes into view, and I can't help but feel a shiver of unease. It's not just the cold that has me trembling, there's something about this mission that feels different. As the plane taxis closer, I catch my first glimpse of our pilot, Charlene. The eccentric psychic hippie woman is nothing like what I had expected. Adorned with layers of colorful scarves, her wild hair exploding from beneath a knit hat, she's a kaleidoscope of colors against the stark white landscape. As we climb into the cramped cabin, I'm immediately struck by the overwhelming scent of patchouli and lavender. Charlene chatters excitedly about the various crystals and mantras she's collected on her travels, her enthusiasm infectious. I glance at Mulder, who's trying his best to hide a smile, and it's clear that her eccentricity will provide some much-needed comic relief during our journey.
We found her here after all.
Once we're airborne, Charlene delves into the details of her visions and prophetic dreams. She speaks with such conviction that it's hard not to get swept up in her stories.
One of her kind is sure to seek.
I look over at Mulder, who's listening intently, his brow furrowed in thought.
Even if it does violate
The spirits speak to me, Charlene insists, her eyes alight with passion. I've seen things that'll make your head spin. I can't help but roll my eyes, but Mulder's curiosity is piqued. What kind of things? He asks, leaning forward in his seat. Charlene launches into a tale of a dream where she witnessed a great battle between light and darkness, a struggle for the very soul of humanity. As she speaks, she pulls out a tattered leather pouch and begins to rummage through it, eventually producing a small crystal. This is a quartz crystal, she explains, holding it up to the dim cabin light. It amplifies energy and intention. I've been using it to help me connect with my visions. She goes on to describe other crystals, each with its own purpose and power. I find myself strangely fascinated, despite my skepticism. The way she speaks of the world, filled with energy and unseen forces, is undeniably compelling. As the flight continues, Charlene introduces us to her favorite mantras, reciting them with the zeal of a true believer. I watch her lips move, forming the ancient syllables, and the rhythmic cadence of her voice lulls me into a meditative state. For the first time in my life, I feel a sense of spiritual connection, however fleeting and tenuous. Mulder, too, is drawn in by her strange spirituality, and I see him mouth the words of a mantra under his breath, his eyes closed in concentration. It's a vulnerable side of him I've rarely seen, and it fills me with a strange warmth. As we draw closer to our destination, the eerie twilight of the far north enveloping us, I can't shake the feeling that we're being drawn into something far greater than we could have anticipated. The weight of the unknown presses down on us, but there's a certain excitement in the air, a sense of embarking on a journey that will leave us forever changed. The biting wind rushed past my face as we boarded the small aircraft, the snow beneath our feet crunching with each step. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of uncertainty as we embarked on this unsanctioned journey to investigate the series of disappearances in the remote Inuit village. Mulder seemed to be unflappable, as always, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading on dangerous ground. Our pilot, Charlene, was an eccentric woman with wild hair and colorful scarves wrapped around her neck.
Oh, yes.
She greeted us with an enthusiastic smile, her eyes sparkling with an otherworldly energy.
Of course you
"Welcome
have.
aboard,"
No shame in it.
she exclaimed, her voice lilting with an odd cadence.
You are made in
"I hope you're ready for a transformative experience."
Without the strength of runes.
We're flying to the edge of the world, you know. As we settled into the cramped seats of the aircraft, I glanced at Mulder, who seemed both amused and intrigued by Charlene's enthusiasm. Her cockpit was littered with an assortment of crystals, each one meticulously placed, as if their arrangement held some secret meaning. A faint scent of incense wafted through the cabin, and I could hear her chanting a mantra under her breath as she performed her pre-flight checks. With a sudden jolt, the plane took off, lifting us into the eerie twilight sky that seemed to permeate this part of the world. As we leveled off, Charlene turned to us, her eyes shining with excitement. "I've got a treat for you," she exclaimed. "I'm going to play the latest stupendous Yappy podcast. He's an Inuit, you know, a psychic. He's got some amazing insights." Mulder's interest peaked at the mention of psychic abilities, and I could see his attention shift from Charlene's crystals to the podcast. For my part, I remained dubious, but I decided to keep an open mind, if only to pass the time during the long flight. As the podcast began, Yappy's rich, hypnotic voice filled the cabin. He spoke of a vision he'd had, one of a new threat to global peace. He described a corruption that was infiltrating the highest levels of government and the most powerful institutions, claiming that if left unchecked, it would lead to catastrophic consequences. The more Yappy spoke, the more I could see Mulder becoming captivated by his message. The intensity of his gaze was matched only by the conviction in Yappy's voice, and for a moment, I found myself almost swayed by the urgency of his warning. But my skepticism was not so easily dispelled, and I could feel my rational mind pushing back against Yappy's claims. As the podcast continued, Charlene seemed to sense my reluctance to accept Yappy's message. She glanced at me with a knowing smile, as if to say, "Just wait and see." I shifted in my seat, trying to hide my discomfort. Her unwavering faith in the Inuit, as she called him, was both unsettling and oddly compelling. I couldn't help but wonder what had led her to become so enamored with his teachings. When the podcast finally ended, the silence in the cabin was deafening. Mulder stared out the window, deep in thought, while I tried to focus on the approaching darkness outside. The implications of Yappy's message weighed heavily on me, despite my skepticism. What if, by some chance, he was right? As the miles between us and civilization grew, I found myself grappling with a nagging uncertainty. I was a scientist, a woman of reason, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn into something much larger than ourselves. The biting cold greeted us as we stepped out of Charlene's small aircraft and onto the tarmac of the desolate airstrip. The weight of the frigid air seemed to press down on my chest, a somber reminder of our isolation here in Churchill, Manitoba. I pulled my coat tighter around me, shivering as I surveyed the barren landscape. This northern town was swallowed by eerie perpetual twilight, and the ominous clouds overhead only seemed to amplify the harshness of the environment. Charlene, the eccentric psychic hippie pilot, fumbled with her crystals and muttered a mantra under her breath, as if trying to ward off some unseen threat. Her wild red hair whipped around her face, escaping the confines of her knitted cap. Her concern was evident as she warned Mulder and me about the weather forecast. "Listen, you two. I don't like the look of those clouds one bit. If you stay here too long, I might not be able to get us out of here. The weather can turn on a dime, and when it does, it's unforgiving. Mulder flashed her a reassuring smile, his determination unwavering. We appreciate your concern, Charlene. But we need to meet with Nuka and get to the bottom of these disappearances. We can't let a little bad weather stand in our way. I frowned, unease creeping up my spine, but I didn't voice my concern. Instead, I glanced around, my eyes adjusting to the faint light that filtered through the dense cloud cover. The wind whipped at my face, the cold air stinging my cheeks as I spotted a figure approaching us from a distance. As they drew closer, I could make out a young Inuit girl wrapped in layers of heavy clothing, her dark eyes intent on our small group. Nuka, I presume? Mulder asked as she came to a stop in front of us. She nodded, her gaze flicking between Mulder and me. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. I didn't think anyone would believe me, but I had to try. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the fear that had driven her to contact us. Mulder placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, a silent promise that we were here to help, no matter the cost. As we turned to leave, Charlene called out a final warning. Remember, the clock is ticking. Don't let those clouds fool you, they're more dangerous than they look. With a final nod, Mulder, Nuka, and I set off toward the village, leaving Charlene and her aircraft behind. As we trudged through the snow, the wind seemed to grow more insistent, as if urging us to turn back. But I knew Mulder wouldn't be deterred, and neither would I. Nuka led us across the frozen landscape, her familiarity with the terrain evident in her confident strides. The village, a cluster of small wooden structures huddled together against the elements, loomed ahead. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping over me as we approached, the dark windows of the buildings seeming to stare back at us like the eyes of the predators Nuka feared. Entering the village, we were met with wary stares and hushed whispers. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew that we were not welcomed here. But we had a job to do, and we couldn't let fear or distrust stand in our way. We followed Nuka to a small, dimly lit cabin, the walls adorned with traditional Inuit artwork and carvings. Here, she shared her story, her voice wavering with emotion as she spoke. As we stepped into Nuka's humble dwelling, the warmth of the room immediately enveloped us, a stark contrast to the biting cold we'd been enduring outside. The room smelled of burning wood and the faintest hint of sage, which combined to create a strangely soothing atmosphere.
Greetings.
Nuka welcomed us with a warm smile,
beyond
her
the
eyes
fog.
shining with a mixture of gratitude and
am
trepidation. Thank you both for coming, she said, her voice soft and melodic. I know the journey was not an easy one, and your presence means more to our people than I can express. Mulder and I exchanged a glance, knowing that we were in this together, that we were determined to help Nuka
offer
and her
you an
community
accord.
find answers and, hopefully, some semblance of peace. I felt the weight of that responsibility keenly, and as I turned my
Have you
attention
heard of the
back to
Finger
Nuka, I
Maidens?
promised her our commitment.
They serve
We're
the
here
two
to help, I
fingers,
said simply.
offering guidance.
Please,
And
tell us
aid
everything you can
to the
about the
tarnished.
disappearances. Nuka led us to a small sitting area,
I am
where we
afraid
settled on two low,
I'll
cushioned
need a
seats
rest.
that seemed to have been arranged for our arrival.
I can play the role of
She
maiden,
hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before
turning
beginning her
wounds into
account.
strength.
Her
to aid
words
you
flowed in a
in your
measured,
search for
rhythmic
the Elden
cadence that
ring.
seemed almost hypnotic, and I found myself
Maybe
drawn
only
into the
take me with
story,
you.
my senses fully engaged.
To the foot of the
The
Earth
first
tree.
disappearance happened 6 months ago, she
Settled.
began, her voice steady despite the fear
by
that
grace.
lingered in her eyes.
To turn runes
It was
into
a child, a
strength.
little boy named Panic. He was just 7 years old, and he was playing near the edge of the village when he vanished without a trace. As she spoke, I could see the scene unfolding in my mind's eye, the remote village bathed in perpetual twilight, the children playing in the snow, their laughter echoing through the air. And then, suddenly, a silence so complete it was almost deafening as panic's absence became known. Nuka continued, recounting each of the subsequent disappearances with painful detail. Elders, children, and even strong hunters all had been taken, leaving behind only questions and a growing sense of unease. It was clear that these losses had taken a heavy toll on the community, and I felt a rising determination to see justice served. But what Nuka said next sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. We believe that the killers are not human, at least not entirely, she explained, her voice lowering to a whisper. They are shape-shifting creatures that can take on the form of humans, making them nearly impossible to detect. They are drawn to our people because of our spiritual purity, a purity they seek to corrupt and possess. I glanced at Mulder, who was leaning forward in his seat, clearly intrigued by the notion of shape-shifting creatures. I, however, struggled to accept such an explanation. My scientific mind demanded evidence and logic, and I found myself grappling with Nuka's words, trying to reconcile them with my own understanding of the world. But as Nuka continued, describing the creatures in horrifying detail, their grotesque, insect-like appearance and their eerie ability to mimic human voices and mannerisms, I couldn't help but be affected by the raw emotion that infused her every word. She spoke with a conviction that was both compelling and disquieting, and I found myself torn between skepticism and an unsettling sense of dread. The creatures prey on our people, trying to possess them and use them as vessels for their own dark purposes, Nuka explained, her voice heavy with sorrow. We don't know how many of them are among us, but even a single being so evil is too many. As Nuka led us through the snow-covered village, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the resilience of these people who lived in such an unforgiving environment.
This way, Tarnished.
The wind whipped around us, biting at any exposed skin, but Nuka seemed unaffected. Her gaze was steady, her stride sure-footed, as we made our way to a small, cozy hut where she offered us hot tea.
I'd heard tell of a
Nuka began to share more about Inuit spirituality and the tribe's beliefs, her voice soft and warm, like the flickering light of a candle in the midst of an endless night. I found myself captivated by her words and the stories she told of her ancestors, who had managed to survive and thrive in this harsh land. The Inuit believe in a deep connection with the land, the animals, and the spirits that surround us, Nuka explained, her eyes glistening with passion. We believe in the power of our thoughts and our intentions, and that we can call upon the spirits for guidance and protection. As Nuka spoke, I couldn't help but be reminded of Mulder and his relentless pursuit of the truth. I had always been skeptical of his faith in the paranormal, but there was something about Nuka's sincerity that made me question my own beliefs. As we continued to talk, I noticed Nuka stealing lingering glances in my direction, her cheeks flushing slightly as our eyes met. I felt a sudden warmth spread through my chest, a mixture of surprise and intrigue at this unexpected attraction. I couldn't deny that Nuka was a beautiful and intelligent woman, and her passion for her people and their beliefs was undeniably appealing. However, I knew that I couldn't allow myself to become entangled in any romantic feelings. My duty was to investigate the case and protect the Inuit people, not to indulge in personal desires. I tried to refocus the conversation on the task at hand, asking Nuka more about the shape-shifting creatures and the legends surrounding them. As she spoke, I found my thoughts drifting back to the connection between us. The way she would occasionally brush her fingers against mine as she handed me a cup of tea or a piece of paper, the soft, almost shy smile that would play at the corners of her lips as she caught me looking at her. These small, intimate moments were like a fire in the midst of a frozen landscape, warming me from the inside out. Despite my efforts to maintain a professional distance, it became increasingly difficult to ignore the electricity that seemed to crackle between us. Nuka's presence was a beacon of light in the darkness, a reminder that even in the most desolate places, life and love could still flourish. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of investigation, Nuka and I found ourselves alone in her hut, sitting by the fire. She looked at me with a mixture of tenderness and longing, her eyes filled with unspoken emotions. "You know, Dana," she said softly, "I've never met anyone like you before. You have such a strong spirit, and your dedication to helping my people is truly admirable." I swallowed hard, feeling a tightness in my chest as I struggled to find the right words. "Nuka, I'm just doing my job," I replied, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't the whole truth. There was something about this case, about Nuka and her people, that had touched me deeply, and I couldn't deny the feelings that were growing between us. As our eyes locked, I knew that Nuka felt it too. But I also knew that I couldn't allow myself to act on these emotions. I couldn't jeopardize the investigation or our working relationship. With a heavy heart, I gently took Nuka's hand in mine, offering her a sad smile. "Nuka, I care about you, and I am deeply moved by the struggles of your people. But I have a responsibility to remain focused on the case and to maintain my professionalism. I hope you understand," I said, my voice wavering with the weight of my emotions. Nuka looked at me with a mixture of sadness and understanding, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand, Dana. I know that you must do what is right, and I respect your dedication to your work. Just know that I will always be grateful for your help and for the connection we've shared." With that, we shared a final, lingering glance before turning our attention back to the fire. Though we both knew that we couldn't act on our feelings, the bond we had forged would remain a treasured memory, a reminder of the warmth and light that can be found even in the coldest, darkest corners of the world. As Scully and Mulder followed Nuka through the seemingly perpetual twilight of the town, Scully couldn't help but notice Mulder's disoriented state. He kept glancing at his wristwatch, as if trying to reconcile the unchanging light with the passage of time. She reached over and gently touched his arm, bringing him back to the present. "Mulder, remember, it's always twilight here. We should rest and start fresh in the morning or we'll be too tired to function properly," she advised. Mulder nodded, understanding the wisdom in Scully's words. They had been traveling for a long time, and fatigue was beginning to set in. Nuka, sensing their exhaustion, offered a solution. "You both must be tired after your journey," she said. "Charlene and Dana, you are welcome to stay at my house tonight. And there's a motel nearby for you, Agent Mulder." Scully and Charlene exchanged glances, silently agreeing to Nuka's offer. Mulder, though reluctant to separate from Scully, knew it would be better for them to get a good night's rest. As they approached Nuka's house, they found themselves leaving the small town behind, venturing deeper into a remote area surrounded by a thick, dark forest. The trees seemed to whisper secrets as they swayed in the gentle breeze, casting eerie shadows that danced on the ground. Scully couldn't help but feel a slight shiver down her spine, but she reminded herself that this was a natural environment, and there was nothing to fear. Nuka's house was a fascinating blend of traditional Inuit architecture and modern design, with a low, domed structure made of wood and earth. Scully could see that the walls were lined with animal skins and furs, providing insulation against the cold. Intricate carvings adorned the entrance, depicting scenes of hunting, fishing, and other aspects of Inuit life. As they stepped inside, Scully was struck by the warmth and coziness of the home. The air was thick with the smell of burning wood from the central hearth, and she could hear the faint crackling of the fire. The walls were adorned with more animal skins and furs, and the floor was covered with thick, woven rugs that felt soft beneath her feet. Carved wooden masks, sculptures, and other traditional Inuit artifacts were carefully arranged throughout the space, creating a strong sense of cultural identity. Nuka led them through the house, showing them the guest room where Scully and Charlene would sleep. The room was modestly furnished, with 2 beds covered in plush furs and a small window that looked out onto the dense forest. It felt both foreign and comforting at the same time. As they settled into the room, Scully couldn't help but marvel at the unique experience of being in this Twilight world. Despite the strangeness of it all, there was an undeniable beauty in the way the soft light played off the trees, casting a perpetual glow over the landscape. It was as if they had stepped into a painting, frozen in time. Before they went to bed, Nuka shared some tea with them, made from local herbs and berries. The warm, fragrant liquid soothed Scully's tired body and helped her to relax. She and Charlene chatted quietly with Nuka, learning more about the customs and traditions of the Inuit people, and gaining a deeper appreciation for their host's generosity. As Scully lay her head down to rest, she couldn't help but think about Mulder, alone in his motel room, and how they would begin their investigation the next day. The mystery of this town, bathed in eternal twilight, haunted her mind waking and sleeping. As I sit across from Nuka, the fire crackling in the background, I can't help but notice how captivated I am by her storytelling. She's a natural, weaving together the history and mythology of this remote town like a spellbinding tapestry. It's a rare moment of respite from the harrowing case we're currently investigating, a string of unexplained child murders and reports of strange occurrences, with some locals believing that malevolent spirits are involved. Nuka leans in closer, her eyes reflecting the warm glow of the fire. Long ago, there were stories of spirits and shape-shifters that roamed these lands. She begins, her voice low and haunting. These beings were said to possess extraordinary powers, some benevolent, others malevolent. It was believed that the malevolent spirits could possess people, forcing them to commit unspeakable acts. As she continues her tale, I glance over at Charlene, who seems just as enthralled as I am. We've seen our fair share of inexplicable phenomena, but this case feels different somehow, as if the lines between reality and folklore are beginning to blur. Nuka's words send a shiver down my spine, and I can't help but wonder if there's some truth to these legends after all. Nuka takes a sip of her wine, her eyes never leaving mine. One of the most feared spirits was the shape-shifter, a creature that could assume any form it desired. It would infiltrate communities, using its powers to sow chaos and mistrust. Some say that it would even murder children to feed on their innocence and gain more power. I exchange a worried glance with Charlene, and I can see that she's thinking the same thing as me. The chilling similarities between the legends Nuka is recounting and the case we're working on are impossible to ignore. Could it be that the town is being terrorized by a shapeshifter, as it was in times long past? As much as I want to dismiss the idea as mere superstition, I can't deny the unnerving feeling that we're on the brink of something truly terrifying. Throughout the evening, Nuka continues to regale us with tales of spirits and possession, her eyes occasionally lingering on me with a hint of something deeper. It's clear that there's an unspoken attraction between us, but I know that we can't act on it, not while we're working together on this case. For now, I must remain focused on the task at hand, even as the boundaries between the world of the living and the realm of the supernatural threaten to unravel before our very eyes. The fire's hypnotic dance casts flickering shadows on Nuka's face as she speaks, the wine in our glasses slowly dwindling. As the evening wears on and the darkness outside deepens, I find myself lost in her tales, wondering what other secrets this town might be hiding and what dangers lie in store for us as we delve deeper into the heart of the mystery. As the fire continues to crackle and pop, Nuka delves deeper into the legends, her voice weaving together stories of spirit encounters and strange occurrences that have plagued this town for generations. I can't help but feel a growing sense of unease as she speaks, the weight of the town's dark history bearing down on me like a heavy fog. In one such story Nuka begins, her eyes locked onto mine. A woman was said to have been possessed by an evil spirit, causing her to transform into a hideous creature that preyed on children. She would lure them away with her enchanting voice, only to feast upon their flesh once they were in her grasp. I shudder at the thought, my mind reeling from the similarities to the case we're investigating. I glance over at Charlene, who is listening intently, her face etched with concern. It's clear that she, too, is grappling with the possibility that these legends might hold some kernel of truth, and that our investigation may be leading us down a path far darker than we'd ever anticipated. As Nuka continues her story, she shifts closer to me, her body language subtle but undeniably suggestive. Though our professional relationship demands that I maintain my distance, I can't deny the magnetic pull between us. It's a temptation I must resist, as much for the sake of our investigation as for my own sanity. With each child the creature consumed, Nuka whispers, her voice barely audible above the fire's hiss and crackle. It was said to grow stronger, more cunning. The townspeople lived in constant fear, never knowing when the creature would strike next or who its next victim might be. The hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as Nuka weaves her tale, the fire casting eerie shadows on the walls around us. I can't help but feel a mounting sense of dread, as if we are being watched by some unseen force, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the night grows darker and the fire's embers slowly fade, I find my thoughts consumed by the stories Nuka has shared, stories that, despite my rational mind's protestations, seem to hold a haunting resonance with the case we're pursuing. It's clear to me now that this town's secrets run far deeper than I'd ever imagined, and that we must tread carefully as we continue our investigation into the heart of the darkness that threatens to swallow us whole. Nuka pauses for a moment, her eyes searching the shadows beyond the fire's light as if seeking some hidden truth. The air is thick with tension and unspoken desires, and I find it increasingly difficult to ignore the powerful connection that's drawing me closer to her. I take a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand and forcing myself to maintain a professional demeanor. The shapeshifter's Nuka continues, her voice barely a whisper as she meets my gaze once more, are said to be the most cunning and elusive of all the spirits that haunt our town. They can take on the form of any living creature, blending seamlessly into their surroundings and leaving no trace of their true nature. Her words send a shiver down my spine, as I consider the implications of such an entity existing within our own community. The thought of a malevolent force hiding in plain sight, preying on innocent lives without warning or reason, is deeply unsettling. As the evening wears on, Nuka's stories become increasingly disturbing, each one more chilling than the last. Yet even as the darkness threatens to engulf us, I can't help but be drawn to her, to the warmth of her body, the softness of her voice, and the depth of her understanding. I feel a desperate need to protect her, to shield her from the horrors that surround us, even as I recognize the danger of allowing my personal feelings to cloud my judgment. As the fire begins to die down, Nuka's voice grows quieter, her words more intimate. Some say that these spirits can even possess the hearts and minds of their victims, she murmurs, her eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that makes it impossible to look away. They can manipulate emotions, twist thoughts, and drive a person to commit unspeakable acts against their own will. The implications of her words weigh heavily upon me, as I consider the possibility that the evil we face may be far more insidious than we'd ever imagined. It's a thought that fills me with both fear and determination, as I resolve to do whatever it takes to bring an end to the darkness that threatens to consume us all. The night draws to a close, and as we finally extinguish the fire and prepare to part ways, I can't shake the feeling that something has changed between Nuka and me. The unspoken desires and lingering glances that have permeated our evening together have left their mark on my soul, and I know that our relationship, both professional and personal, will never be the same. But for now, I must push these thoughts aside and focus on the task at hand, unraveling the mystery of the spirits, possession, and shape-shifters that haunt this town, and ensuring that the darkness is vanquished once and for all. Mulder, I couldn't sleep. The strange events in this small Alaskan town gnawed at me, consuming my thoughts. The motel bed offered little comfort, and my mind raced, refusing to rest. My hunches had rarely let me down in the past, and now, more than ever, I felt compelled to follow my instincts. It was time to explore the town, to get a feel for the locals and their way of life. I grabbed my coat and headed out into the cold, crisp night. The air was thick with a biting chill, but it only served to sharpen my senses. As I walked the streets, I found myself drawn to a lively establishment, emanating warmth and the sound of laughter. The sign above the door identified it as an Inuit watering hole. I knew I was on the right track. This would be the perfect place to get a sense of the community and possibly unearth some clues to the bizarre occurrences that had brought me here. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the embrace of a rich, living culture. The walls were adorned with intricately carved wooden masks, and I could see the craftsmanship that had gone into creating each one. Inuit artwork was displayed prominently throughout the room, and a low, resonant hum of conversation filled the air. It felt like a sanctuary, a place of camaraderie and shared history. I took a seat at the bar, glancing around, taking in the patrons, and observing their interactions. The bartender, a burly man with an impressive beard, approached me with a smile. "What can I get you?" he asked, his voice friendly and welcoming. "Beer, please," I responded, trying to blend in. I needed to stay sharp, though. I couldn't afford to get drunk or let my guard down. I recalled the incident in the X-Files movie, where I'd found myself in a rather compromising situation. That wouldn't happen tonight. As I sipped my beer, I listened to the conversations around me, hoping to pick up on any useful information. I noticed a group of locals huddled together, their voices low and urgent. It was hard to make out their words, but I could sense the fear and apprehension in their hushed tones. I decided to engage with them, to see if I could learn more. "Excuse me," I began, attempting to strike a balance between casual and concerned. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I'm new in town and have noticed some strange things happening. Could you fill me in?" They exchanged wary glances before one of them, an older man with deep-set eyes, spoke up. "There have been incidents. People have gone missing, and strange creatures have been seen lurking in the shadows." As he spoke, the others nodded in agreement, their eyes wide with fear. I could feel the weight of the truth in his words, and I knew I had to dig deeper. I spent the rest of the evening listening to their stories, asking questions, and piecing together a picture of a town in the grip of an ancient and malevolent force. As I walked into the dimly lit bar, the air was thick with smoke and the stench of stale alcohol. It was a quiet night, with only a few regulars huddled in the corners, nursing their drinks. I found a seat at the end of the bar, hoping to blend in and gather some information on the recent happenings in town. The bartender, a gruff-looking man with a grey beard, eyed me suspiciously as he served me a whiskey. I couldn't help but feel a strange sensation, as though I was being watched. I glanced around the room and noticed a woman sitting a few seats away, her piercing blue eyes locked onto mine. She was beautiful, in an otherworldly way, with long, flowing auburn hair and high cheekbones. There was something off about her, though, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. She got up from her seat and gracefully made her way toward me, her gaze never wavering. My heart raced as she slid onto the stool next to me, her body unnervingly close. I could feel her presence like a static charge in the air. "You're not from around here, are you?" she asked, her voice sultry yet unsettling. "No, I'm just passing through," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "I don't meet too many strange men in this desolate little town," she said, her eyes never leaving mine. "Your presence and friendly face are a comfort to me, especially with all the locals stressing about missing children and mysterious murders. And then there's the downed UFO and the military quarantine of the area." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. I had to tread carefully here. "Yes, I've heard about those things," I said cautiously. "Can you tell me more?" She leaned in closer, her breath warm on my ear as she whispered, "There are rumors, you know, of strange creatures lurking in the shadows. Some say they're responsible for the missing children and the murders. Others think they came from the downed UFO, but they're not of this world." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and the uncanny valley feeling intensified. I tried to keep my voice steady as I asked, "What do you think?" A mysterious smile played on her lips. "I think that sometimes, when the world is dark and frightening, it's easier to believe in monsters than it is to face the true horrors that humans are capable of." I was taken aback by her insight, but I pressed on. "What can you tell me about the military quarantine? Have you seen anything unusual?" She hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her words. I've seen soldiers patrolling the outskirts of town, and helicopters flying overhead. They're trying to keep people away from the crash site, but some have managed to sneak past them. They say the wreckage is like nothing they've ever seen before, that it's not from this world. As she spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. Her beauty, her intelligence, her strange aura, it all felt as though it belonged to another world. And her connection to the town's recent events seemed too convenient to be a coincidence. But for now, I had a job to do. I had to find out what was happening in this town, and if there was a connection to the downed UFO. As I sipped my whiskey, I continued to question the enigmatic woman beside me, determined to uncover the truth behind her presence and the mysterious events plaguing this desolate town. I continued to ask her questions, trying to glean as much information as possible. All the while, her eyes seemed to penetrate my soul, making it increasingly difficult to maintain my focus. She spoke of the town's history, its mysteries, and the pervasive atmosphere of fear that had settled over the community. As we spoke, her hand brushed against mine, and it felt like a jolt of electricity surged through me. Suddenly, my fascination with her took a sharp turn into obsession. I found myself ordering more drinks, letting the comforting burn of the alcohol wash over me as I inched closer to her. The bar around us faded away, and it was as if we were the only two people in the room. Before I knew it, our lips met in a fiery kiss, my mind consumed by her presence. I knew I should have been more cautious, more alert, but I couldn't resist her pull. In a moment of weakness, I invited her to my motel room. It was a reckless decision, one that my rational mind would never have made, but the power she seemed to hold over me was overwhelming. My phone vibrated in my pocket, reminding me of Scully and the real world beyond the intoxicating haze I found myself in. With a pang of guilt, I typed out a message to her, met a woman at the bar. Going to get to know her better. We'll keep you updated. I hit send, knowing that it was the bare minimum I owed my partner, but I couldn't bring myself to reveal more about my strange encounter. Scully would undoubtedly be worried, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this woman was the key to uncovering the truth behind the town's mysteries. As we left the bar and made our way to my motel room, I couldn't help but wonder what it was about her touch that had so profoundly affected me. It was as if she had reached inside my mind and taken control, steering me away from my usual cautious and analytical nature. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying, and I couldn't help but question my own sanity. The night air was cold and crisp, and the moon cast eerie shadows over the deserted streets. Our footsteps echoed through the silence, amplifying the feeling that we were walking through a dream. Despite the surreal nature of the situation, I couldn't deny the very real danger I might be putting myself in. But the allure of the woman beside me was too strong, and I found myself unable to resist her pull. As we entered my motel room, the flickering light from the neon sign outside cast an otherworldly glow on her face. I reached out to touch her once more, desperate to understand the hold she had over me. But as our fingers brushed against one another, the room seemed to spin, and I felt a dizzying rush of emotions flood through me. The last thing I remember before succumbing to the darkness was the haunting sound of her laughter, echoing through my mind like a siren's call. From Mulder's point of view, written in the first person, expand this narrow part of the story into 3 vivid detailed output with a length of no less than 500 words. Make output 1 as lengthy as you can and await me to prompt you to continue to part 2. I can feel my heart racing as we tumble onto the bed together. My mind is foggy, and I can barely think straight. Her touch is electrifying, sending shivers down my spine. I know I shouldn't be doing this, that I should be thinking of Scully, but I can't help myself. She's taken over my mind. As we kiss, her body starts to contort and shift beneath me. Her eyes bulge out of their sockets, and her limbs elongate into grotesque, insect-like shapes. I try to pull away, but she grips me tightly, holding me down with a strength that's beyond human. My thoughts race, and I try to make sense of what's happening. Is this some kind of hallucination? A side effect of the case we're working on? Or is it something else entirely? Whatever it is, I know I need to get away before it's too late. I've always prided myself on being able to keep a clear head, even in the most dangerous situations. But now, as I struggle to break free from this woman's grasp, I can feel my mind slipping away from me. The lines between reality and hallucination are blurring, and I don't know what's real anymore. The woman's body continues to shift and I could feel her hot breath on my neck as we kissed passionately on the bed. I knew it was wrong, that I should be with Scully instead, but I couldn't help myself. It was like something was controlling me, urging me to let go of my inhibitions and embrace the moment. As we continued to undress each other, I started to notice something odd about the woman. Her movements were becoming jerky and inhuman, like a marionette being controlled by an unseen force. Her eyes seemed to bulge out of their sockets, and her limbs were lengthening into a contorted, insect-like shape. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the more I looked, the more I realized that something was seriously wrong. I tried to get away from her, to break free from her grasp, but it was like her grip was made of iron. My heart raced as I struggled to get free, but it was like I was trapped in a nightmare. The woman's eyes seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, and I could feel her strength growing with each passing second. As the realization dawned on me that I was in danger, I screamed for help, hoping that someone would come to my aid. But it was like the walls of the motel were soundproof, and my cries went unheard. I was alone, trapped in a room with a monster, and I had no idea how I was going to get out alive. I couldn't resist her, the way her body moved and the sultry look in her eyes. It was like she had taken over my mind and body, and I was completely powerless. I knew this was wrong, I shouldn't be doing this. I kept thinking about Scully and wishing I could stop myself, but the woman had complete control over me. As we lay on the bed together, I noticed that something was off about her. It was like an uncanny valley effect, something about her movements and appearance seemed almost human, but not quite. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, her eyes started to bulge out in an inhuman way. Her limbs began to lengthen and contort, taking on a vaguely insect-like shape. I tried to get away, to scream for help, but she held me tightly. I struggled against her grip, trying to break free from her clutches. The woman's movements were now completely unnatural and inhuman, and I realized that I was trapped with some kind of monster. I screamed and fought, but she held me tightly, her fingers digging into my skin. I could feel her strength increasing as her body continued to transform before my eyes. Equals. I couldn't believe what was happening. I had always thought of myself as in control, especially in situations like these. But with this woman, I felt like a puppet on a string, completely powerless. As we kissed, I kept trying to push her away, but it was like she was drawing me closer and closer to her, using some kind of otherworldly force. At first, I thought it was just the heat of the moment, but the longer we were together, the more I felt like something was wrong. Her skin felt strange against mine, almost as if it was shifting and changing under my fingertips. And her eyes, they seemed to be changing shape, bulging out and becoming more insect-like. I knew I needed to get away, to break this spell that she had cast on me. But every time I tried to move, it was like my limbs were made of lead, too heavy to lift. It was terrifying, feeling so out of control and at the mercy of this woman. She kept watching me with those strange, insectoid eyes. I knew that I had to get out of there, to get as far away from her as possible. When we were kissing, I felt as if I was losing control. I couldn't stop myself from touching her, and every time I tried to pull back, my body refused to comply. I kept thinking about Scully and how wrong it was to be with another woman, but something about her was taking over my mind. But then something changed. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that the woman in my arms was no longer human. Her eyes, which had been piercing and captivating, were now bulging out of their sockets in an inhuman way, like an insect's. Her limbs, once soft and feminine, had elongated into a contorted, vaguely insect-like shape. As the realization dawned on me, I tried to get away, but she held me tight, her grip tightening around me like a vice. I screamed for help, but my voice seemed to be muffled by some invisible force. I struggled to break free, but it was no use. She was too strong for me. As I looked into her eyes, I could see a twisted, alien intelligence behind them. It was as if she was using some kind of mental power to keep me under her control. I felt a cold, creeping dread wash over me as I realized that I was completely at her mercy. In that moment, I knew that I had to fight back. With all my strength, I pushed against her, trying to break free from her grip. She resisted at first, but then I felt her body start to weaken. Her eyes lost their inhuman bulge, and her limbs returned to their natural shape. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel a cold sweat running down my back. For a moment, we just stared at each other, both of us struggling to catch our breath. Then, slowly, she began to change again. Her eyes bulged out of their sockets, and her limbs elongated into an insect-like shape once more. I screamed for help once more, and to my great relief I heard a banging at the door and a familiar voice. "Hang on, Mulder," the voice said. "Darn Scully," I kicked through the locked motel door, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and adrenaline. I had heard Mulder's screams and knew something was horribly wrong. As I entered the room, my eyes fell upon a sight that made my blood run cold. Mulder was on the bed, struggling against a woman whose limbs were contorting in a sickening way. Her eyes were bulging, and I could see that they were not human. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up as I realized that we were dealing with something far beyond our understanding. I knew that I had to act fast, so I drew my gun and aimed it at the woman. As I did so, I could see that her face was changing, becoming more insect-like with razor-sharp fangs and disgusting thin hair. I had never seen anything like it before. Without hesitation, I fired 3 shots. 2 hit her in the chest, and the last one hit her in the head. The woman let out a blood-curdling scream before collapsing onto the bed, her limbs falling limp. For a moment, I stood there, gun still drawn, staring at the lifeless body before me. My thoughts were racing, and I couldn't help but wonder what kind of creature we had just encountered. I had always been skeptical of Mulder's beliefs in the paranormal, but now I had witnessed something that defied explanation. Turning my attention back to Mulder, I could see that he was shaking, his face pale and covered in sweat. I rushed over to him, pulling him into my arms and holding him tightly. I could feel his body trembling against mine, and I knew that he had been through something traumatic. "Are you okay?" I asked him softly, trying to keep my own fear in check. Mulder didn't answer, but I could feel him nodding against me. We stayed like that for a few moments, both of us shaken by the experience. I knew that we had just encountered something beyond our understanding, and that our lives would never be the same again. I stumbled back from the bed, my mind racing and my body covered in a strange, clear liquid. My heart pounds in my chest as I look back at the woman, who has now transformed into a contorted, insect-like creature. My mind races, trying to comprehend what I'm seeing. I know I'm not dreaming, but this feels like something out of a nightmare. As I struggle to get to my feet, I hear a loud banging on the door and Scully's voice calling out to me. I shout out to her, desperately trying to warn her about what's happening in the room. But it's too late. The door flies open and Scully bursts in, gun at the ready. The woman-turned creature turns to face Scully, bearing razor-sharp fangs and insect-like eyes. I watch in horror as Scully fires 3 shots, striking the creature twice in the chest and once in the head. The creature lets out a deafening screech before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. My mind is reeling as I try to process what just happened. Nuka enters the room behind Scully, gasping at the sight of the dead creature. She explains that it's a shapeshifter from Inuit legends, and that the corruption in the town is a corruption of the spirit. I want to believe her, but I can't help but think that there must be a scientific explanation for what we just witnessed. Scully gives me a knowing look, silently acknowledging the role reversal between us. She's usually the one who believes in the spiritual and the unexplainable, while I cling to scientific logic. But now, it seems like I'm the one struggling to rationalize what I just witnessed. As we exit the motel room, I can't help but feel like something has shifted inside me. My worldview has been shattered, and I'm not sure how to pick up the pieces. Scully's hand on my shoulder is a comfort, a reminder that I'm not alone in this. And even if we don't have all the answers, at least we have each other. I wake up to the sound of rain tapping against the windowpane. I sit up in bed and glance over at Mulder, who is already awake and staring at the ceiling. I can sense his unease, but he doesn't say anything. Instead, he gets out of bed and starts pacing around the room. As he paces, I can't help but notice the yellowish liquid on his shirt. It's not blood, and it doesn't seem to have any other obvious source. I ask him about it, and he tells me about the shape-shifting woman from the previous night. Mulder insists that there must be a scientific explanation for what happened, but I argue that it fits with the Inuit legends and beliefs. I can see the frustration on his face, but I stand my ground. It's not often that I get to prove him wrong. We gather our things and head back to Naka's house. We fill her in on what happened, and she tells us about her suspicions regarding the shapeshifters and their connection to the downed UFO and the military quarantine. Charlene is still at Naka's house, and she offers to help in any way she can. She tells us about her background in botany and suggests that she may be able to identify the source of the yellowish liquid on Mulder's clothes. I can feel the tension rising as we discuss the situation. It's clear that we're dealing with something far beyond our normal investigative scope. But I also know that Mulder won't rest until he gets to the bottom of it. And I won't rest until I make sure he stays safe. As the rain continues to fall outside, we begin to plan our next steps. It's clear that we're in for a long and treacherous journey, but I'm determined to see it through to the end. Whatever it takes. I followed Mulder, Naka, and the rest of the group into the building where the town elders were waiting. The atmosphere in the room was tense, and I could feel the weight of their gazes as we entered. Naka took a seat at the front of the room and began to speak, her voice clear and unwavering. I have seen with my own eyes the creature that has been causing these deaths, she said. It is a shapeshifter, a being of great power that has been corrupted by the darkness that has befallen our town. The elders murmured amongst themselves, clearly shocked by Naka's words. Some of them looked skeptical, but others nodded in agreement. What can we do to stop it? One of the elders asked. Naka paused for a moment, then spoke again. We must perform the traditional shamanic magic, the throat-singing rituals. It is the only way to purify the town and drive out the darkness. Mulder raised his hand, and Naka nodded for him to speak. With all due respect, I don't think magic is going to solve this problem, he said. We need to find a scientific solution, something that we can actually prove and use to stop these killings. The elders looked at each other uncertainly, clearly torn between the two approaches. I felt a similar sense of conflict within myself. As a scientist, I was naturally skeptical of the idea of using magic to solve the problem. But at the same time, I had seen enough unexplainable phenomena in my time with Mulder to know that there were some things that couldn't be solved with science alone. After a long discussion, the group eventually came to a compromise. They agreed to perform the traditional rituals, but also to allow Mulder and me to continue our investigation and search for a scientific solution. As we left the building, I could see the uncertainty and fear on the faces of the townspeople. I knew that we had a long road ahead of us, and that the key to stopping the shapeshifter and the darkness that had befallen the town was still out of our grasp. But as always, I was determined to find the truth, no matter what it might be. 2/2. As the throat-singing ritual began, I felt a sense of unease in the pit of my stomach. The room was dark, lit only by a few flickering candles, and the chanting of the elders seemed to echo off the walls. I couldn't understand the words, but the power and intensity behind them made my skin crawl. Mulder was standing beside me, his expression unreadable. I knew he was skeptical of the spiritual approach to the problem, but we had to try everything. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the door, and Mulder and I drew our weapons in unison. "Who is it?" Nuka called out from the center of the room. "It's the FBI," a male voice responded. "Open up." I exchanged a worried glance with Mulder. We had been ordered to stay out of the investigation, but we couldn't just sit idly by and let innocent people be killed. Nuka motioned for us to stay put as she went to answer the door. I could hear the muffled voices of the agents outside, but couldn't make out what they were saying. After a few tense moments, Nuka returned with 2 people in tow. The male agent was tall and lean, with piercing blue eyes and short, slicked back hair. He wore a crisp suit and a smug expression. The female agent was shorter and curvier, with long brown hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She had a no-nonsense look about her and carried herself with a sense of authority. "Agent Mulder, Agent Scully," the male agent said, his tone condescending. "We've been looking for you. What do you want?" Mulder asked, his voice tight with anger. "We've been ordered to bring you in," the female agent said, her eyes flickering between us. "You're jeopardizing the investigation." "We're not going anywhere," I said, my grip on my gun tightening. "We have a duty to protect the people of this town." The male agent smirked. "You're in way over your head, Agent Scully. This is a matter for the military, not the FBI." Mulder stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "I've had plenty of practice standing up to government stooges like you. We're staying right here, and we're going to see this through to the end." The agents exchanged a look, and for a moment I thought they might try to force us to leave. But then they turned on their heels and left the room without another word. I let out a sigh of relief, but the tension in the air lingered. We were running out of time to solve the mystery of the shapeshifters and save the people of this town. But with Mulder by my side, I knew we could handle whatever came our way. As Mulder and I discussed our next steps, he informed me that he had found out where the shapeshifter had been living. He suggested that I perform an autopsy on the creature to gather any additional information while he and Nuka investigated her apartment. After getting the necessary equipment, I began the autopsy on the shapeshifter's body. As I made the first incision, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The yellowish liquid that Mulder had found on his clothes had been all over the creature's insides as well. It seemed to be some sort of biofluid that was used to facilitate its transformation. I made notes of my findings as I proceeded with the examination, careful not to miss any details. Meanwhile, Mulder and Nuka went to the shapeshifter's apartment. Mulder reported back to me, explaining that they had found a large collection of insect specimens and some odd-looking plants. Nuka identified them as native to the area and explained that they were often used in Inuit shamanic rituals. Mulder also discovered a map of the area with several locations marked on it, one of which was the military quarantine zone. As I continued with the autopsy, I discovered something that made my skin crawl. The shapeshifter had a second set of vocal cords, similar to those found in insects. This explained the creature's ability to replicate human speech patterns so accurately. I couldn't help but wonder what other abilities the creature possessed that we had yet to discover. When Mulder and Nuka returned to the morgue, we shared our findings with each other. It was clear that the shapeshifters were using the biofluid to facilitate their transformation and that they had a connection to the military quarantine zone. With this new information, we knew we had to act fast to prevent the shapeshifters from taking over the town completely. Mulder and Nuka arrive at the address found in the dead insect lady's possession. The building looks unassuming, with a single door leading up to the apartment on the second floor. Mulder takes out his gun and checks the clip, while Nuka prepares herself with shamanic chanting. As they enter the apartment, Mulder's flashlight illuminates the dark space. It's cluttered with strange artifacts and the walls are covered in drawings of bizarre creatures. But what catches their attention the most are the strange eggs littered all over the place. Mulder approaches one of the eggs and shines his light on it. It's the size of a large grapefruit and covered in a slimy, translucent film. Suddenly, the egg begins to shake, and Mulder takes a step back, his gun at the ready. One by one, the eggs begin to hatch, revealing adolescent monsters that resemble a cross between a human and an insect. They are aggressive, lunging at Mulder and Nuka with sharp claws and razor-sharp teeth. Mulder starts firing his gun, but the creatures are quick and agile, dodging his bullets with ease. Nuka relies on shamanic magic to protect herself, chanting ancient words while waving her hands in intricate patterns. The fight is intense, with Mulder and Nuka struggling to hold their ground against the onslaught of monsters. Mulder manages to take out a few with his gun, but they keep coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, Nuka's chanting intensifies, and a bright light emanates from her body. The monsters recoil in fear, retreating back into the shadows. Panting and exhausted, Mulder and Nuka survey the damage. The apartment is in shambles, with broken furniture and shattered glass littering the floor. But the monsters are gone, defeated by the combined efforts of Mulder's marksmanship and Nuka's shamanic magic. Mulder turns to Nuka, a mixture of awe and fear on his face. He realizes that the world is far more complex and mysterious than he ever imagined, and that there are powers at play that he can barely comprehend. But for now, he knows he needs to focus on the task at hand, finding a way to stop the monsters from taking over the town completely. As we arrived at Nuka's house, the storm outside raged on with thunder and lightning illuminating the otherwise pitch-black surroundings. The wind howled like a pack of wolves in the distance, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread growing within me. We entered the house and were greeted by Charlene, who seemed relieved to see us. She was still in her pajamas and had a blanket wrapped around her, shivering from the cold. Nuka had made some tea, and we all sat around the kitchen table, trying to process what had just happened. Mulder and Nuka told me about the eggs they found in the shapeshifter's apartment, and how they had hatched into these adolescent insect-human hybrids. It was hard to believe, but after everything we had seen in this town, I didn't doubt it for a second. We sat there in silence for a while, sipping our tea, until Charlene broke the tension with a joke. It was a silly pun, but it made us all laugh, and for a moment, the weight of the situation lifted off our shoulders. As we sat there talking, the storm outside grew even more intense, and we realized that we were stuck here until the weather cleared up. We all agreed that it was best to stay put until we could contact Skinner and get some backup. Nuka had prepared some spare rooms for us to sleep in, and we settled in for the night. But the howling wind and pounding rain made it hard to sleep, and every creak and groan of the house made me jump. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something was lurking outside, waiting to strike. As the storm raged on, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors awaited us in this strange, isolated town. And as we huddled together for warmth and protection, I knew that we were in for a long, terrifying night. We huddled around the warm, crackling fire, seeking comfort in its flickering light as the storm raged outside. The tension from the day's events still hung heavy in the air, and I could sense that we were all deep in thought. Nuka broke the silence, her voice soft and soothing. Our beliefs and customs may be different from yours, but they are no less valid or powerful. She spoke with such conviction, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of respect and admiration for her. Mulder, however, was still skeptical. "I'm not saying your beliefs are wrong," he said, his tone measured. "I'm just saying that we need a more concrete solution to this problem. Magic isn't going to cut it." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of annoyance at his dismissal of the community's spiritual beliefs. "But science isn't always the answer," I interjected, trying to keep my voice even. "There are things that we can't explain, things that defy logical explanation. Just because we don't understand something doesn't mean it isn't real." Mulder sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. "I know that, Scully. But we need to approach this from all angles. We need to keep our minds open to all possibilities, even if they seem unlikely." I shook my head, feeling frustrated. "But that's just it, Mulder. To these people, shamanic magic isn't unlikely. It's a part of their culture, their history. We can't just dismiss it because it doesn't fit into our narrow worldview." We lapsed into silence once again, each lost in our own thoughts. The sound of the rain pounding against the roof and windows was the only thing that broke the stillness. It was Charlene who spoke up next, her voice soft and timid. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, wringing her hands nervously. "But I just wanted to say that I admire the community's reverence for nature. It's something that I've always felt strongly about." I smiled at her, feeling a sense of kinship. "Me too, Charlene. It's easy to forget how interconnected we are with the natural world. We take it for granted too often." Mulder nodded in agreement, a hint of a smile on his lips. "You know, Scully, I think you might be right. Maybe there's more to this than just science. Maybe there's something to be said for the power of community and spiritual purity." I raised an eyebrow in surprise, feeling a small sense of satisfaction. Maybe there was hope for Mulder yet. We sat there in silence, watching the flames dance and flicker in the darkness, lost in our own thoughts and contemplations. Scully takes another sip of her tea and glances at Mulder, who seems lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. Mulder snaps back to reality. Oh, just thinking about the shapeshifters and the military quarantine. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're both happening at the same time. I agree, Scully nods. But I also think we should consider Nuka's beliefs and the possibility that there's more to this than just a scientific explanation. Mulder raises an eyebrow. You're not seriously suggesting we rely on shamanic magic to solve this case, are you? Scully chuckles. I'm just saying that we shouldn't dismiss anything until we have all the facts. And who knows, maybe there is some truth to Nuka's beliefs. Charlene chimes in, hey, I'm a believer. I mean, I believe in ghosts and stuff. Not that I've ever seen one, but... Mulder smirks. That's reassuring. Maybe we'll be safe from any ghostly hauntings with you around, Charlene. Nuka clears her throat, breaking the tension. Excuse me, but may I remind you all that we have a serious problem at hand. Scully nods in agreement. You're right, Nuka. We need to come up with a plan to stop the shapeshifters before they take over the town completely. Mulder interjects, but what can we do? We don't even know what they are or where they came from. Scully leans forward, that's where Charlene's botany skills come in. She may be able to identify the source of the yellowish liquid on your clothes, Mulder. It could lead us to the shapeshifter's origin. Charlene nods excitedly. Yes. I'm ready to put my degree to good use. Mulder smirks. Looks like we're in good hands. Now all we need is Skinner to send us some backup. Scully nods. Agreed. But until then, we'll have to stay low and lay low. Charlene pipes up again, hey, I've got a good one. Why did the shapeshifter cross the road? Everyone looks at her expectantly. To get to the other side. The group bursts into laughter, the tension from the earlier fight dissolving. As they settle in for the night, the fire casting a warm glow on their faces, Mulder can't help but steal glances at Scully. He's always had feelings for her, but he's never been able to act on them. He wonders if tonight is the night to finally confess. But for now, he'll enjoy the company of his friends and the warmth of the fire. Tomorrow is another day, and another chance to solve the mystery of the shapeshifters. The shapeshifters are not just a physical threat, but a spiritual one as well, she says. They have the power to corrupt our very essence, to turn us away from the path of our ancestors and towards darkness. Mulder, who has been eyeing Scully throughout the conversation, suddenly blurts out, but what if our spiritual purity is not enough to defeat them? What if we need more than just faith to save us? Scully, sensing the unspoken tension between her and Mulder, responds with a hint of sarcasm, well, I'm sure your skepticism and scientific approach will save us all, Mulder. This earns a small laugh from Charlene, but Nuka cuts in, we cannot rely solely on magic or science to save us. We must combine our knowledge and beliefs to find a solution. As the group continues to discuss the shapeshifters, the sexual tension between Nuka and Scully becomes more apparent. Mulder, feeling left out, tries to inject some wit into the conversation. I feel like a third wheel here, he jokes. Maybe I should just go back to the motel and order some room service. This earns another small laugh, but the group quickly gets back on track, discussing the possibility of finding a way to stop the shapeshifters once and for all. I watch in horror as the power goes out, plunging the room into darkness. Suddenly, a window shatters, and 2 people slip inside. They are not like the others. They don't look like the Inuit people who have been so kind to us. They're wearing suits, and they're not here to help. As they approach, they introduce themselves as FBI agents, but something about them feels off. They speak in hushed tones, and their eyes dart around the room, taking in everything in a way that makes my skin crawl. Then, they begin to speak. They tell us that what's happening in this town is just the tip of the iceberg, that there are forces at work that are far beyond our comprehension. They warn us to back off, to stop digging into things that we don't understand. Mulder isn't having any of it. He's always been a skeptic, always questioning authority and the status quo. He stands up to the agents, demanding to know what they're really after. The agents just smirk, as if they're enjoying the show. I can feel the tension in the room rising, and I'm not sure what's going to happen next. But one thing is clear, these agents aren't here to help us. They're here to stop us. And we can't let that happen. Nuka stands up, her eyes locked on the bad agents, her body radiating with an intense energy. Mulder and I step back, unsure of what is about to happen. The agents continue to smile, their faces contorted in a way that makes my skin crawl. Nuka begins to speak, her voice low and powerful, filled with an ancient wisdom that I can feel deep in my bones. She talks about the importance of protecting the natural world, of maintaining the spiritual purity of her people, and of the consequences that will come if they continue to interfere with their way of life. The bad agents listen intently, their smiles slowly fading as Nuka's words begin to penetrate their facade. As she continues to speak, I notice that their faces begin to shift and contort, almost as if they are struggling to maintain their human form. Suddenly, Nuka's eyes lock onto mine, and I feel a surge of electricity pass between us. I realize that she is using her shamanic powers to protect us, to shield us from the agent's evil intentions. The room fills with a bright light, and I hear a loud crashing sound as the agents are thrown back, their bodies contorted and twisted. When the light fades, they are gone, leaving behind only a faint smell of sulfur and an eerie silence. I turn to Nuka, my heart pounding with adrenaline and fear, and she looks back at me with a small smile. "We are safe," she says, her voice filled with a quiet confidence. "For now." Mulder steps forward, his eyes filled with awe and wonder. "How did you do that?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Nuka just smiles and shakes her head. "It is not something that can be explained in words," she says. "It is a power that comes from the spirit world, a gift that has been passed down through generations of my people." As we sit in the darkness, the only light coming from the flickering flames of the fire, I can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the power of the natural world and the strength of the human spirit. And I know that, no matter what happens, we will always have each other, and the power of our collective beliefs to guide us through even the darkest of times. I sit in the dimly lit room, the only source of light coming from the flickering flames of the fireplace. The encounter with the menacing agents left us all on edge. Just as we begin to calm down, Charlene's laptop springs to life, and the screen fills with the image of the stupendous Yuppie. The Yuppie's message is more disturbing than ever before. He warns us that the shapeshifters are just a small piece of a much larger puzzle. A new threat, he says, is coming, and it will bring about the end of the world as we know it. His tone is urgent and foreboding, and I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But as his message goes on, there's something oddly amusing about the way he delivers it. Maybe it's the way his eyes bug out as he speaks, or the exaggerated hand gestures he uses to emphasize his point. Despite the gravity of his warning, I find myself suppressing a giggle. Mulder, ever the skeptic, scoffs at the Yuppie's message, dismissing it as a charlatan's attempt to get attention. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something to his words, something that we're missing. As the conversation continues, I can see the fear in Nuka's eyes. She knows that her people are facing not just a physical threat, but a spiritual one as well. We all sit in silence, contemplating the enormity of what we are up against. And as I look around the room, I realize that we're all in this together. Mulder, Nuka, Charlene, and we may come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, but we all share a common goal. To protect the innocent, to fight for what's right, and to stop whatever it is that's threatening to destroy us all. Greetings, listeners. This is the stupendous Yuppie, and I have a prediction to share with you. The end of the world is coming, and it will be unlike anything we have ever seen before. The veil between this world and the next is thinning, and ancient beings are awakening from their slumber. They seek to claim this world as their own, and they will not be stopped easily. The signs are all around us, if only we open our eyes to see them. The stars are shifting in the sky, the oceans are rising, and the very fabric of reality is unraveling. The time of reckoning is at hand, and only those who are prepared will survive. So I urge you, my fellow seekers of truth, to prepare yourselves for what is to come. Keep your wits about you, stay vigilant, and never forget that the greatest weapon we have against the darkness is our own inner light. This is the stupendous Yuppie, signing off. Stay safe out there, and remember, the truth is always waiting to be uncovered.
Greetings, children. It is I, your host, your obedient servant, Sebastian St. Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls, Vincent twice, Vincent twice. You can always call me Bennett. Begin by simply listening. Slow down and see just how peaceful today can be. Thanks so much for swinging by, as always. Catch you guys on the flip side.